Have you ever noticed how silence can wound deeper than words? One quiet glance, one unanswered message, and suddenly the balance of power shifts. Machiavelli understood this long before we did, that silence is not weakness but a weapon sharper than speech, colder than revenge. In a world addicted to noise, let's explore why those who master silence always win. As we step into the first chapter, picture this: a room filled with noise, everyone rushing to speak, to explain, to be understood. Yet the one who says nothing commands it all. His silence isn't emptiness, it's presence. The kind of presence that bends the atmosphere without a single word. People glance at him wondering what he's thinking, what he knows, what he might do next. That uncertainty becomes his armor. That quiet becomes his weapon. Now imagine being that person, calm, unshaken, untouchable. You don't need to fill the air with words because you've learned what most never will. Silence is not the absence of power, it is its purest form. It's the art of restraint, the discipline of holding back when every instinct wants to prove, to defend, to explain. Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." And there is no greater act of courage than sitting inside your own silence while others crumble under the noise of their own minds. Most people cannot bear quiet. It exposes them. In silence, their thoughts start to echo too loudly. Their insecurities begin to surface, and they feel the need to escape that discomfort. They rush to speak, to justify, to explain. They give away their positions the way an untrained soldier swings his sword too soon. But the wise one, the Stoic, waits. He observes. He collects what the others spill in their haste. Every unnecessary word they utter becomes a map to their weaknesses, a confession disguised as conversation. I remember once sitting through a heated debate. Two people argued fiercely, each trying to dominate the other with volume. But there was a third, silent, composed, listening. When the noise died down, he spoke a single sentence, and the entire room shifted. That is the power of controlled speech. He had been studying the battlefield while others wasted ammunition. Marcus Aurelius said, "You always own the option of having no opinion." Silence gives you that advantage. It buys time, clarity, control. The silent mind becomes like still water. It reflects everything clearly, distorting nothing. The loud mind is like a storm, restless, blind, crashing against itself. When you learn to stay quiet, you stop being dragged by every emotion that stirs the crowd. You begin to see things as they are, not as they appear. And that is where true strength begins, not in conquering others, but in mastering your own reactions. So, when tension fills the room and your instinct screams to speak, don't let others show their cards. Let them reveal their fears, their pride, their desires. You will see patterns they don't even know they're creating. Watch closely. Gather what matters. The moment to act will come, and when it does, one precise word will cut deeper than 1,000 thrown in haste. Silence is not weakness. It's strategy. It's patience wearing armor. And those who wield it well never shout for victory. They simply wait, and when the noise fades, they are the only ones still standing. Moving into the second chapter, picture a council room filled with tension. The air is thick with expectation, every man eager to speak, to prove his worth through noise. Yet the one who holds true power sits back, silent, watching the words of others weave their own traps. His calm unnerves them. His restraint provokes curiosity. In his silence, they begin to reveal what he never needs to ask. That is the power Machiavelli understood and the Stoics lived by. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Those who speak without need expose not just their thoughts, but their blind spots. Every word becomes a thread someone else can pull. Every sentence, a door left open to be entered by those who wish to know too much. Silence, then, becomes a fortress, one built not of walls, but of wisdom. Now imagine a king who speaks freely, revealing every plan to please the court. His enemies do not need spies. His tongue has already betrayed him. Beside him sits another ruler, measured and deliberate. He listens, lets others reveal their positions, their fears, their ambitions. By the time he speaks, he already knows what the rest will say. That is not manipulation. It's mastery, the discipline of timing and thought. I once knew a man who led his team with few words. He never interrupted, never rushed to prove a point. While others argued, he listened. And when he finally spoke, the entire room fell still. His words were brief but precise, like arrows loosed only when the target stood clear. Later, I asked him how he managed such control. He smiled and said, "Because I never forget that silence buys me time, and time gives me truth." Epictetus reminded his students that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we may listen twice as much as we speak. The wise know this instinctively. They allow others to fill the silence with their thoughts, their excuses, their justifications. In doing so, they collect more than information. They collect leverage. Modern life rewards noise. We post, we argue, we explain, believing that expression equals strength. But in this endless talking, we reveal more than we realize. The true Stoic leader knows that speech is not currency, it's risk. Every word you spend must serve a purpose. Every sentence must either build or defend your ground. Those who talk without intention are like soldiers charging into fog, brave perhaps, but blind. The one who waits, who observes, who strikes only when the outcome is certain, rarely needs to fight at all. So when you feel the urge to speak, pause. Let the silence stretch. Let others rush to fill it. Because in that moment, you will see everything you need to know. And from there, the next move will already be yours. Advancing to the 3rd chapter, imagine walking into a room where conversations flow like rivers, fast, noisy, tangled. Yet there's one person sitting quietly, not competing, not explaining, just observing. Within minutes, the air around them changes. People notice. They lean in. They begin to wonder what that person might be thinking. Silence turns into presence, and presence turns into power. There's something magnetic about what we cannot read. When someone withholds their words, the mind of others rushes to fill the gap. We project wisdom where there is mystery, confidence where there is calm. As Seneca once wrote, to be silent at the proper time is the highest wisdom. In silence, the Stoic creates an aura that words can never match. People often mistake silence for passivity, but look closer. Silence is a mirror that reflects more than it hides. When others speak too quickly, they reveal themselves. You can hear their fears between their words, their doubts disguised as certainty, their need for validation bleeding through their tone. Meanwhile, the quiet one learns everything without having to ask. They gain advantage before the battle even begins. I once watched a leader in a crowded debate. While others fought to dominate the floor, he said nothing. His eyes moved slowly from one speaker to another. By the time he finally spoke, just one sentence, The room fell still. It wasn't what he said that held power. It was the weight of everything he hadn't said. That is what silence does. It gives every word gravity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. In that same spirit, the Stoic does not compete for attention. He doesn't rush to prove his worth through noise. He lets the restless burn out their energy while he gathers clarity. His calm becomes their confusion. His quiet becomes their curiosity. In a world addicted to performance, silence becomes rebellion. When you choose not to explain yourself, you declare independence from the opinions of others. When you let your silence speak, it says, I don't need your approval to exist. And that unspoken message holds more strength than any argument could. So, next time you find yourself surrounded by those who talk to be heard, remember this: the one who can stay still while others scramble already stands higher. The one who observes while others expose themselves already knows how the game will end. Silence is the invisible crown worn by those who no longer seek validation. It's the language of power that doesn't shout, it simply is. And the moment you learn to wear it, people will feel your presence long before you ever speak. From here, the lesson deepens. Power does not belong to the loudest in the room, but to the one who listens longest. The Stoics knew this well, and so did Machiavelli. Silence, when used with discipline, is not the act of retreat. It's the art of control. Every piece of information you withhold becomes a weapon. Every reaction you restrain becomes armor. The one who knows more than he reveals walks through chaos untouched, while the one who speaks too soon writes his own defeat. Imagine two negotiators sitting across a table. One fills the air with promises, explanations, nervous laughter. The other sits still, eyes calm, hands steady. Minutes pass, but his silence stretches like an ocean. The first man, uncomfortable with the quiet, begins to talk again, revealing his fears, his plans, his bottom line. By the time he finishes, the silent one already knows how to win. That is not manipulation. It's mastery. It's the discipline of silence turned into strategy. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, if you seek tranquility, do less, or rather, do what's essential. The same applies to speech. Say less, and what remains will carry weight. Those who rush to speak surrender their advantage. They commit too early, bind themselves to positions that cannot be changed. The Stoic, on the other hand, moves with patience. He watches, waits, and strikes only when the path is clear. He understands that timing, not noise, dictates power. How many have destroyed themselves with words spoken in haste? A careless confession, a moment of anger, an unnecessary explanation that turned into evidence against them. Seneca warned, better to trip with the feet than with the tongue. Once words leave your mouth, they no longer belong to you. They belong to whoever is willing to use them. I once knew a man who lost everything in a single meeting. He wanted to impress his superiors, so he shared every plan, every idea, every detail. Weeks later, those same words were used to outmaneuver him. He had given away his advantage with enthusiasm. Had he paused, had he let silence carry the weight instead, he would have seen how easily excitement turns into exposure. Silence gives you time, and time gives you sight. It allows you to observe the battlefield before you step onto it, to measure before you move, to choose the perfect moment when speaking no longer risks, but ensures victory. So, the next time someone demands your opinion, remember this: you owe no one an immediate answer. Let silence hold the space. Let the noise settle. Because once you've mastered patience, every word you finally choose to release will strike with the precision of a blade. And in that moment, you will see silence was never empty. It was power gathering its aim. At this stage, imagine a warrior sharpening his blade before battle. No one sees the hours he spends in silence, the careful patience of preparation, the discipline of waiting until the moment is right. When he finally draws the sword, it is not the strike that wins, it's the silence before it. Machiavelli understood this truth as deeply as the Stoics did. What is unseen holds more power than what is shown. What is unspoken carries more weight than what is declared. The wise conceal their intentions until the moment is ripe. Their thoughts are like hidden weapons, sharp, ready, untouched by the corrosion of unnecessary exposure. Their plans are seeds beneath the soil, invisible to the world, until they bloom into undeniable results. The Stoics lived by this principle. Epictetus said, "Be silent for the most part, or speak merely what is necessary. To reveal everything is to disarm yourself. To protect what matters is to stay silent until your action can speak for you." There was once a merchant who spoke endlessly about the riches he would earn, the empires he would build, yet he achieved nothing, for every promise he made became a mirror for others to copy. In contrast, another man in the same town said nothing. He worked quietly, disappeared for a season, and returned with ships full of gold. People called him lucky. They didn't understand. His silence had protected his labor from envy, imitation, and interference. He did not announce. He executed. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest blessings come to us by way of madness, provided it is the madness of silence." He meant that silence is not absence. It is potential, condensed. It protects your vision from being polluted by doubt or stolen by distraction. When you hold your tongue, you keep your strength concentrated. Silence serves many masters. It guards information. It creates mystery. It lures truth out of others while hiding your own. It teaches patience. It bends the air in your favor, and in a world where everyone rushes to be seen, it grants you the rarest gift, invisibility until impact. Think about the generals of old. They didn't reveal their attack before it began. They let rumors spread, confusion grow, and only when the enemy relaxed did they strike. The same applies to life. Speak too soon, and you give the world a map to your weaknesses. Speak too often, and you dull the edge of your words. True mastery of silence is not passive. It is deliberate power, cultivated, tempered, and precise. When you learn to keep your plans hidden, your words measured, and your emotions unexposed, you become untouchable. So, the next time you feel the need to explain, prove, or reveal, stop. Let your silence hold the secret. Let your work speak when it's ready. Because when silence is guided by wisdom, it doesn't just protect your power, it multiplies it. Entering the 6th chapter, imagine the grand halls of an ancient court. The marble floors echo with whispers, but at the center sits one man, silent. Eyes turn toward him not because of what he says, but because of what he withholds. His quiet is heavy, magnetic. Even kings and generals measure their words around him. That's the paradox of power. The fewer words you use, the stronger they become. In those days, silence was feared. It was seen as the mark of the dangerous and the wise. Anyone could shout their opinions, but few could command attention without speaking. And that truth hasn't changed. What has changed is the world around it. We've traded silence for noise, constant chatter, endless updates. The illusion of relevance through words that carry no weight, yet the silent one still stands apart, calm, collected, in control. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The same applies here. Don't tell people who you are, show them through your restraint. The less you speak, the more others fill the space with their assumptions, their projections, their admiration. Humans fear the unknown. They fear what they can't define. And so, silence becomes not absence but presence, the kind that unsettles and commands at once. Look at any room today. In meetings, conversations, negotiations, silence has become unbearable. People rush to fill it as if quiet itself were an accusation. They talk to escape the discomfort, and in doing so, they reveal themselves. Their need to fill the void exposes their lack of composure. The strategist, however, uses this weakness. He lets silence stretch until it speaks for him. He asks one question, then waits. And in that waiting, the truth begins to pour out. The impatient always expose their hand. Seneca said, "To be silent is to allow your wisdom to mature." Those who cannot control their words cannot control their destiny. They become predictable, easy to read, easy to manipulate. But the one who speaks with purpose, sparingly, intentionally, holds the narrative in his hands. He decides when the story begins and when it ends. Even in modern times, attention is the rarest currency. In a culture drowning in noise, the person who values silence gains power simply by contrast. The quiet one draws eyes without trying. Their words, when finally spoken, slice through the noise like a blade through silk. Because true authority doesn't need to announce itself, it radiates from composure. So the next time you feel pressure to fill the silence, resist it. Let others scramble. Let them reveal. Because silence isn't retreat, it's dominance, disguised as calm. Speak less, mean more, and watch how the world bends to listen. For in a noisy age, the one who masters silence becomes the loudest voice of all. Now imagine this. A man walks into a room and says nothing. He listens, he observes. Every movement, every hesitation, every word spoken by others becomes a note in a silent symphony that only he can hear. While others rush to speak, to prove, to impress, he studies them patiently, quietly, almost invisibly. This is where true influence begins, not in the noise of persuasion, but in the discipline of perception. Machiavelli and the Stoics understood the same truth. Power belongs to those who see clearly, not those who speak loudly. When you are talking, you learn nothing. When you are silent, everything around you begins to reveal itself. Seneca wrote, "No man was ever wise by chance. Wisdom is built through deliberate observation, through the art of paying attention when others are too distracted by their own voices to notice what's right before them. Silence sharpens the senses. You begin to read what others miss, the twitch of uncertainty before someone lies, the flicker of pride before they boast, the subtle pause before they betray their intent. People reveal far more through their tone and timing than through their words. But you can only catch these truths if you're quiet enough to see them. I once met a mentor who seemed to know everyone's motives before they spoke. He never interrupted. He didn't need to. He'd listen, smile, and when he finally responded, his words landed exactly where they needed to. Later, I asked how he always seemed to know what others were really thinking. He said, "Because most people are too busy performing to notice that I'm watching." That line stayed with me. It's the essence of mastery, control over your attention when everyone else is chasing theirs. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, learn to be indifferent to what makes no difference. That's the discipline of silence, knowing what matters enough to speak on and what deserves only your quiet. The silent observer doesn't waste energy reacting to every noise. He collects knowledge instead. Information becomes his armor and patience his sword. In this quiet strength lies a paradox. The less you say, the more others reveal. People project their assumptions onto you. They fill the blank space of your silence with their own fears and expectations, showing you who they are while knowing nothing of who you are. You become a mirror, calm, still, and dangerously reflective. That is the highest form of strategy. You control the flow of truth without ever forcing it. You guide others without them realizing. You win not by overpowering them, but by allowing them to expose themselves. So the next time you feel compelled to prove your insight, pause, observe instead. Because in silence, you stop being part of the noise and start mastering the room. From here we enter the rhythm of power, that subtle dance between words and silence. Picture a quiet strategist sitting at the edge of a council table, watching every move unfold. Around him, voices rise and fall like waves, crashing in haste. Yet he remains still, perfectly attuned to the flow of conversation, to the momentum of emotion, to the precise moment when a single word could change everything. Power, like music, has rhythm. Those who sense it rule the room without raising their voice. Timing is everything. The Stoics taught this long before generals wrote of strategy. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, everything in life is timing. Wait for the right moment, and the world yields willingly. In silence, that rhythm becomes clear. You begin to see when a word will build or when it will destroy, when to speak and when to hold the line. Most people speak to fill silence, but the wise speak only to shape it. Because in every exchange, whether a negotiation, a conflict, or a conversation, timing decides who leads and who follows. Now imagine two men facing the same decision. The first acts quickly, eager to prove, driven by the illusion that speed equals strength. The second waits. He observes the shifting ground, the small changes that reveal where the wind is moving. When he finally speaks, his voice lands like a stone in still water. Ripples spread. The room adjusts to him, not the other way around. That is not hesitation, it is mastery. Patience sharpened into precision. Machiavelli warned that nothing is more dangerous than rushing to lead before the moment is ripe. The Stoics would agree. Acting or speaking too soon exposes you. The first to reveal always becomes the easiest to predict. The first to defend becomes the easiest to disarm. But the one who waits, who observes, who lets silence gather strength, gains the freedom to adapt, to strike from clarity instead of reaction. The untrained mind spills itself freely, revealing every intention, every weakness. But the disciplined mind speaks like a sculptor, removing only what's unnecessary until truth stands alone. Words spoken too fast lose their edge. But words released at the right time cut through confusion like a blade guided by calm hands. In the rhythm of power, silence is the pause before impact, the breath before truth. It is not restraint for its own sake, it is control made visible. So the next time the world rushes you to speak, wait. Feel the rhythm shift. Because those who master timing don't chase influence, they orchestrate it, and their silence, when it finally breaks, is the sound of command itself. At this stage, picture two generals standing across a fog-covered field, One paces restlessly, shouting orders, convinced that action equals control. The other stands still. His soldiers wait in perfect silence, reading the calm on his face. He doesn't need to command their attention. He already owns it. The first general spends his power trying to prove it. The second holds his power by saying nothing. Silence is patience made visible. It's discipline turned outward. It's the mark of a mind that has conquered itself. Those who cannot remain silent, who feel the need to speak, to argue, to explain, reveal a fatal flaw, a lack of self-mastery. And for any serious ambition, that flaw destroys more than failure ever could. The Stoics knew this. Power demands patience, and patience often wears the face of silence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." True control is invisible. The quiet mind sees further than the loud one, and the one who can wait will always outlast the one who rushes. Watch a negotiation. Two people sit across from each other. One talks endlessly, filling the air with words. The other says little. Seconds stretch. The silence becomes unbearable. And then it happens. The talker starts revealing what he shouldn't, his fears, his limits, his desperation. The silent one doesn't interrupt. He just listens. And by the end, he walks away with everything he wanted. That's not luck. It's control. It's silence doing the heavy lifting. Seneca once said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." Words are like arrows. Once released, they can't be taken back. How many have destroyed themselves not through mistakes, but through explanations? Through the need to fill space that silence would have guarded for them. In the stillness, you learn that speech can often cost more than silence ever will. The wise use silence the way an artist uses shadow, to shape, to define, to create depth. In negotiation, in leadership, in life, the one who can tolerate silence has the upper hand. Silence unsettles the unsteady. It exposes the impatient. It forces truth into the open. Every time you wait instead of rushing, you let the world reveal itself to you. There's a story of a merchant who would let clients talk until they grew uncomfortable with their own voices. They would begin to negotiate against themselves, offering him better terms just to fill the void. He once said, "Silence is my most profitable investment." And he was right. Patience turns into currency when others cannot afford it. In politics, war, or relationships, the same rule applies. The appearance of strength often matters more than strength itself, and nothing appears stronger than composure. When you speak too soon, you commit. You shrink the field of possibility. But when you wait, when you let your silence carry the weight of your intent, you remain unpredictable and therefore powerful. The Stoic knows that calm is not weakness, it's readiness, like a drawn bow before release. Epictetus warned, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master," and silence is rebellion against that enslavement. When you can hold your reaction, you hold your freedom. The moment you rush to respond, you surrender control of yourself. And once you lose that, everything else follows. Think of the great figures in history who commanded respect without noise. They didn't dominate through speech, but through stillness. Their words were rare, but when they came, they cut through the air like steel. That's not magic. That's mastery. Because silence magnifies meaning. The fewer your words, the greater their weight. Even in everyday life, this principle holds true. When someone insults you, silence stings them more than anger ever could. When the world demands your reaction, your refusal to give one creates curiosity, even fear. People don't know how to read calmness, and that mystery gives you power. Seneca wrote, To be calm is the highest achievement of the self. Silence is that calm, not passive but deliberate. It is waiting without weakness. It's the art of being unshaken while others unravel. It's not about withholding words forever. It's about knowing when your voice will matter most. The impatient mind sees silence as a void that must be filled. The disciplined mind sees it as a weapon that must be sharpened. In every situation, silence buys you clarity. It buys you time. It allows others to act without awareness, while you stand grounded in observation. And when you finally speak, your words land with precision, because they were born in stillness, not in impulse. Silence communicates confidence. It projects control. It tells the world, I move on my own time. You don't need to convince anyone of your strength. Let them feel it in your calm. The loudest voice rarely wins. The most composed presence always does. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to defend, to prove, don't. Let silence do what noise cannot. Let it hold the tension. Let it shape perception. Let it build anticipation. Because in a world that's addicted to sound, silence is the only language left that still commands attention. And when you finally choose to break that silence, do it with precision. Speak few words, but make them count. Let them strike clean, deliberate, and final. Because in the end, true strength is not about being heard. It's about being understood. And sometimes, the loudest truth is the one spoken through silence. In a world overflowing with noise, the silent figure stands out. While others fight to be heard, the one who remains still commands attention without asking for it. In a room full of voices, the quiet observer sees what no one else can. In a culture obsessed with expression, the one who masters silence becomes untouchable. Silence does not mean weakness. It means control. It means strength refined through discipline and awareness. The Stoics knew this truth well. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Silence is that calm mind in action. It is patience in motion. It is the art of watching without reacting, of understanding before responding. While the world rushes to fill every quiet space, the wise use those moments to think, to breathe, to see. In stillness, they find clarity, and in clarity, they find power. Ask yourself with honesty, do you speak because it is necessary or because silence makes you uneasy? Do you reveal your thoughts too freely, or have you learned to let quiet carry your message? Words have weight, but silence has depth. It gives you time to think, to choose, to act with intention. And in that restraint lies mastery, the kind of mastery that shapes not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. Every time you resist the urge to fill the air, you strengthen your command over it. Every time you wait before reacting, you remind yourself that composure is the highest form of confidence. Silence is not retreat. It is preparation. It is the discipline that separates those who act from those who merely react. If this message spoke to you, write in the comments, "I choose silence." Let it remind you that power is not in the volume of your voice, but in the steadiness of your presence. And if these words brought you a moment of reflection, subscribe to stay connected to more lessons on calm, strength, and self-mastery. Stay grounded, stay aware, and let your silence carry you toward peace. In a world that cannot stop talking, the quiet mind always wins.